Hi everyone. I wanted to talk to you about the assignment that's coming up in Module 2, in which you're going to write a statement of the research problem. And I'm going to do that by looking at the actual text of the description of the assignment and the rubric that is on eClass under Submit Your Assignment. You can just go to that section. You'll see two PDF boxes at the top in red, and then you just click one of those, whether you want all in black and white or you want it in color. So whichever of those suits you, and then you can look through it on your own as well. But I just wanted to point out some things that I think would be helpful to you perhaps in successfully completing this assignment. I won't take a lot of time to talk about the description, but I do want to talk about this first section, which is to learn. The purpose of this assignment is to learn more about the key first step in conducting research, identifying a research problem. And this is probably one of the hardest things that you'll do. There are so many interesting questions to be asked in education. And so this is the step where you decide, okay, of all of these questions that are possible, this is the one that I'm going to ask, and this is the one that I'm going to research. And that can feel a little bit scary because, you might think, well, if I do this, then I can't do that. And that's obviously true. But there are certain things you can think about as you're moving towards thinking about your research question that will be helpful to you. And we'll talk about that in a moment. I wanted to also point out that you're going to consider the appropriateness of your question in light of Creswell and Guterman's discussion in Chapter 2. And so that's one way that you can approach this whole process. Identifying a research problem now will provide you with a focus for your upcoming assignments as well. And that's one of the reasons we put it early in the course, even though it may feel upside down to do it so close to the beginning of the course. But because everything depends on that question, all of the other assignments are going to depend on that question too. And so you're going to have an opportunity to actually jump right into the whole research process, and you'll have support along the way as you do that. Okay, step one in doing this assignment means that you're going to think about perhaps 2 or 3 research problems of interest to you. They don't have to be in 2 or 3 different areas of inquiry. They might be one area of inquiry, but 2 or 3 different aspects of that particular area of concern. So you can think about what those are, and then it might be important, and it often is important, to talk to trusted colleagues and mentors, your cohort group, for example, or people in your cohort group that you perhaps work with, or your principal or whomever, and sit down with them and just talk about these are some of the things that I want to spend a significant amount of time thinking about. So what do you think? Is there general interest that exists around the problem? Is this something that might be important to our board or to our school or to my practice or whatever it happens to be? And you can have that discussion with someone that you trust, that will understand some of the issues that you're confronting and may give you a different perspective as well that will be helpful to you along the way. The second step is actually 3 steps. So once you've considered the following criteria, choose one of the research areas of interest. So you've got these 2 or 3 that are up there that you've talked to a colleague about. You're starting to think, well, I might go this way, might go that way, whatever it happens to be. But then you have to ask yourself some other kinds of questions beyond that discussion. And that would be, do I have the resources necessary to research the problem? For example, do I have the financial resources to fly to Northern Canada to do my research? Do I have the time that's necessary to commit to the kind of research that I'm talking about? For example, I may, propose that I want to do a survey and which will lead to quantitative analysis, and I also want to interview 10 people as my qualitative piece of my work. And when you think about that, and as you get to know more about doing research, you'll recognize that kind of time commitment just probably isn't going to be possible within the timelines that are necessary for you to complete your program on time, for example. So, you have to be realistic in terms of the time that you have available. And do you have accessibility to the participants that you actually need or want to do a survey with, or want to do interviews with, or want to do a case study with, and so on. So that will be important as well. So those are some practical questions. Then whether studying this problem, you need to consider whether studying this problem would make a significant contribution to existing literature and educational practices. Now, it doesn't mean that this is something brand new and nobody else has ever thought about anything even close to this. It kind of exists on its own, because knowledge isn't like that. Knowledge really is an accumulation and then a realization based on that accumulation over time. So, so what you need to be thinking about here is perhaps while there's been work done in this area, there hasn't been work that takes on the specific characteristics of a northern school, an Aboriginal school, whatever it happens to be. And you can find that out by doing a literature review, which is you're going to be doing in your upcoming assignments. And you'll be doing a mini version of that when you're putting this statement together. What research approach is likely best in approaching this research problem? Now, we haven't talked about that yet in the course, and that sounds like it's a bit of a problem, but you're not expected to say, I'm going to use critical analysis, for example, or something like that, unless you happen to have done something like this before and you happen to have those skills. But you can think about, I think that interviews would be most appropriate, for example, or surveys would be really helpful for these reasons, and you need to be able to say why. Or a case study is particularly useful in this because of the particular kind of question that I'm asking. And then having completed the preliminary work, you're going to, that might be included in your research report, you're going to write it up. So, and you're going to use pages 64 to 75 in Creswell and Guterman as a guide for constructing your statement of the problem. So your paper needs to include the following headings, or mini headings, or whatever it happens to be, however you want to organize it, whatever makes most sense. But you're going to use the headings that Creswell and Guterman suggest, which are your general topic. And, so there's kind of a general area that I'm interested in. And this is the particular research problem that I'm going to address. The justification for the research problem. Why should somebody do this kind of work? The deficiencies in the evidence. You may find that there isn't enough about a certain topic, for example, but there is enough for you to move forward. And I would say, they don't have it here, but what does the literature actually say that suggests that this is an interesting topic or worthwhile topic? And then relating the discussion to audiences as described in Creswell and Guterman. So that will be your next step. And then you're going to support your work by using literature from Edu 510. So of course you're going to probably use Creswell and Guterman, but you will have found references from peer-reviewed academic journals to support your statement of the problem, for example. And so you'll need to do a bit of work in a library search, looking for the kinds of literature that's going to support you in doing the kind of work that you do. And Creswell and Guterman are going to be helpful in thinking about what that might look like. In fact, they actually give a sample of the statement of a research problem. So you'll be able to have a look at that. Now, you can use references from professional journals, but they're not necessary, and they should be limited to no more than one or two if you do use them. So I'm not looking for them, but if you do, I want to make sure that you are using mostly academic journals, because that's going to give your work more credence when you actually do this kind of work in the end. But sometimes professional journals are helpful. And I think I've got a video posted that differentiates between professional and academic journals, so you can have a look at that, and that will help you as well, making that differentiation. But you can also look in the library search engine, and oftentimes it will tell you that it's peer reviewed, for example, and that's a clue that it's an academic journal. And then you're going to be expected to use excellent APA 7th edition using excellent technique for citations and references. And then it states 5 to 7 pages double space, Times Roman or Garamond or whatever it happens to be, 12-point font, 1-inch margins, cover page and references are not included in the page count, etc. So, well, not etc. That's basically the criteria for how you're going to set up your article. And then you have the rubric that states the ways in which you're going to receive some mark out of this. So depending on how clearly and carefully you do each of the things that are mentioned here, you'll end up with 5 marks. Same with statement of the problem. Your paper includes all elements of the paper as described in section 3 in the assignment description, for example. Your paper is concise, thoughtfully conceptualized. So how is your paper constructed? Is it clear and easy to understand what it is that you're trying to say, or do writing conventions or the lack of writing conventions get in the way of clarity? Those sorts of things. And then last, references and citations. Your paper is well supported with appropriate literature and etc. So that's basically all I have to say. If you have any questions about this, or if you find that you're really having a hard time coming up with a problem or the set of problems initially, please let me know and we can have a discussion about that so that you can be confident as you go into your paper that you've settled it in your mind. Oftentimes it just takes talking to somebody else who has some knowledge of research to kind of come to that point. So I'm happy to talk with you about that and to get you to that point so that you could move forward into this assignment with some real confidence. So I hope this has been helpful. Any questions, let me know. And if there's anything about the actual doing of the assignment, what we've just discussed, let me know about that too. So take care and all the best with the assignment.